So welcome, everyone. Let's start with some introductions because we have a few folks who may not know everyone. We're really pleased to have Cheryl Cook tonight. Cheryl is, and amongst the many hats she wears in town, she's representing the Spirit Council tonight. So thanks for joining us. We have Elizabeth McGee here for the second time. Elizabeth is our equity coach provided to us through the Sustainable CT program. Welcome, Elizabeth. We have Jason Casey. Jason is, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's infrastructure and projects in the Board of Ed, something close to that. Is that?
Very close. Director of Infrastructure and Technology.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Great to have you. I think everyone else will know each other. Great to have everybody. We have a full agenda, so let's dive right in. I'm going to share my screen so we can see the agenda. So first item is the approval of our November minutes. I believe those went out. Did anybody, I can put them up on the screen. Did anybody have any edits to these? I believe this was Joe, you did these, is that right? Yes.
Yep.
Yep. All right, if there are no edits, is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Motion to approve.
All right, in a second.
Second.
All right, Joe. And any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or abstentions?
I'll abstain.
All right.
Yeah, I'll abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay. Great. We're thrilled to have, maybe before we just jump into the Spirit Council, a brief bit of news. Eric, I don't know, do you want to share with the group your relationship to this committee?
Yeah, I'm going to be liaison to clean energy, and for that matter, Spirit Council and sustainability. So many hats, and appreciate you having me.
Great. Well, we're excited. It doesn't sound like you're going to have, you'll be less busy than you were before, but different
busy, exactly.
Yeah. And just before we move on, there was some discussion, I guess, at the Board of Selectmen about the restructuring of committees, but that's not been affected yet, right?
It has, but we haven't, it'll take a little bit to figure out what that looks like.
Got it. Okay.
But we did decide to combine sustainability and clean energy. And what was a little bit of a surprise to me is we also moved the recycling committee under clean energy. So one thing that we may talk about at the next meeting as an agenda item, and just to start planting the seed, is the idea of perhaps rebranding clean energy as sustainability, and then having different subcommittees under sustainability, including, recycling, clean energy, or what have you, but very much open to your input before we move in that direction.
Okay, let's put that in the agenda for next meeting. Great. Well, so moving on, we're really pleased to have Cheryl with us tonight. Anyone who is familiar with the Sustainable CT program and list of actions and knows anything about Spirit Council, I think can see that there's an affinity here. There are a range of actions in Sustainable CT that are probably things Spirit Council is doing, or very much in the spirit of the Spirit Council. So this is, I think, the first chance. I think, Cheryl, I attended one of your meetings. We had a chance to just sort of broach the topic, but I think tonight we look forward to you giving us a flavor for what you're doing at Spirit Council. We can then reciprocate a little bit with just give you an understanding of what we're doing and how Sustainable CT might actually help. And then let's see if there's any areas that we want to sort of take away and see if there's areas that things that we can collaborate on. So without further ado, you are co-chair of the Spirit Council, is that right, Cheryl?
Yes, I am, with Nicole Kodak. We are fortunate to have Eric and Sean Askham as our liaisons, and they've been our liaisons for the last 2 years, and they've done great work with us. So I'm very pleased to have them back as liaisons. Kristen Formanak, from the Director of Social Services, is our staff liaison. So we get staff support from them. So that's where we are. Do you want to share your screen, Mark, and show the slides, or?
I'd be glad to. I think I have to pull it up.
While we're doing that, I just want to thank all of you for having me here tonight. I am also part of the outreach subcommittee for the Spirit Council, and this is what we do. So I'm always thrilled to go talk to new groups about what Spirit Council is doing. So most people ask, why are we called the Spirit Council? We have gotten all sorts of weird questions about what that actually means. Everything from some religious cult to the Long Island medium, like, what do we do? So I'm spelling it out for you here. Simsbury problem identification and resolution of issues together. And in case you're wondering how we got that rather cumbersome name, it came from the Department of Justice. In the beginning of 2019, when I still am the chair of the Community for Care, but the Board of Education asked the Community for Care to assist them in holding a community forum in response to certain events at the high school and other events that were happening around us, both of a racial nature and some anti-Semitic problems. So the Department of Justice came in and we held a community forum of about 100 people. People from all walks of life in Simsbury, and we collected information, had great conversations, and this name comes from their City Spirit program, which they go and meet with towns and cities that are having issues that they can help resolve with community partnership, and here we are. So if you go to the next slide, Mark. You can see the long and winding road of our history here. You can see the beginning of what I just described. And we started as a subcommittee of the Community for Care. Our first event was an implicit bias program. It happened to be the last event before everything shut down with COVID. So we had a pause there for a little bit. We started our Facebook page. In July of that year, we launched our first Let's Talk event. And then in September, we asked the Board of Selectmen to make us our own town committee and to approve a resolution declaring racism to be a public health crisis, which they did. And then we started trying to orient ourselves within the community. You know, what was it we were going to try to do? What were our goals? We formed subcommittees. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see we had made a vision statement and a mission, which you can all see there. And yes, it's very broad and seems, you know, sort of vague, but for the people who came together to do this, it was very difficult to decide what the vision was going to be. And we came together over the idea that we could make Simsbury a more welcoming community. We were not trying to say that it was not a welcoming community before, but after that forum with all those people and everybody getting to tell their stories and their personal experiences, we realized that there was work to be done. We wanted to make sure that, you know, the things that happened that initiated the Spirit Council weren't going to happen again. And that's a lot of work. So if you flip to the next slide, you will see the faces of the people who joined. Most of these people had never served on a board or commission in the town of Simsbury before. They felt very strongly about what had happened and the mission, and came together to see what they could do about it. So here we are. You can see Nicole Kodak there. She's my co-chair. Tanisha Grant is the vice chair. She also now serves on the police commission here in town. You might know her from there. Shari Chester Anderson at the top of the page chairs our housing subcommittee. Lloyd Huey chairs our outreach committee. And Kosi Lee chairs our events committee, and he is also the moderator of the Let's Talk events. And Rebecca Hatch, who is a pastor at St. Albans Church here in Simsbury, chairs our data and audit committee. On the bottom, you can see our staff liaisons. We have 2 members of the police department, a Board of Education administrator, a library technician, and she assists us with, the library assists us with all of our Let's Talk series programs. We are very grateful for. So if you go to the next slide, you will see our subcommittees and the structure. What we focus, the subcommittees are the product of the goals stated by the Board of Selectmen in the resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. Those areas are education, food security, health, housing, and criminal justice. We divided into those 4 groups to address those issues. And that's how we remain today. Housing was the last one that we added. That was at the request of the Board of Selectmen. There had begun to be a lot of conversation here in town about different types of housing options that were available or not available. And we held a Let's Talk event dedicated to housing in February of last year, and 100 people showed up. And it was the biggest one we had, and it generated its fair share of controversy. But we realized with that conversation that much more needed to be done and many more conversations should be held. So we asked the Board of Selectmen how, we would like to approach this, and they were having conversations among themselves. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth here, Eric, but it's so that's how we got the housing subcommittee. So if you go to the next slide, it's a little breakdown of the different subcommittees. This is the event subcommittee. I've listed the Let's Talk programs that we've held. We've done 15 so far on a variety of topics. We have had experts from all over the state participate in these events. We have had great conversation, and people who there have been a few people who have attended our events who ended up joining our committee. So it has been a really enriching and a learning experience for all of us. And as our moderator and Kosi likes to say, we never walk away from one of these without having learned something. And I would say that is always the case. That series will continue into 2022 with every month except for this coming for January. You go to the next slide. This is the outreach committee. We do presentations for different organizations around Simsbury, including boards and commissions and outside organizations. Last night, as a matter of fact, Lloyd and I presented to the Lions Club here in Simsbury. I'm here with you tonight. We have been to lots of different organizations, everything from the bike walk group to the Chamber of Commerce and both political town committees and everything in between. So we do a lot of that, but I think it's helping. People are now more aware of what it is we're trying to do, and that's always a good thing. And our goal is to provide a place and a safe space for people to have difficult conversations. And that's what we're doing. So if you want to go on to the next slide, I'm not trying to keep you too long on all these slides. Our data and audit subcommittee, you can see what the goal is there. This subcommittee has received some funding from the town to execute this data plan. We are working with Data Haven and Health Equity Solutions to help us in the data gathering project. We are quite sure that the data that we collect will be useful in helping the town understand, where we are, how the people who live here feel about where we live, and good, bad, or indifferent. And we're going to be sharing all of that information with everybody, starting with the Board of Selectmen, who has put this as part of our mission. And it's important because, we started from a place where everybody was very uncomfortable with what was going on. And I think now 2 years later, we are in a better place. And now we are ready to put, some data behind what it is we're doing. One of the things that's very difficult about this work, and I'm sure Elizabeth will tell you this later, is how do you know when you've succeeded? What does success look like? And we don't know what that is until we find out where we are now. So that's the purpose of this. If you want to go on to the next one. This is the housing subcommittee. This is a very busy subcommittee right now. We have applied for and received notice that we have been awarded a grant from the Hartford Foundation of Public Giving to address housing needs in Simsbury. The money is going to be dedicated to public engagement forums on housing. Again, providing places where people can come together and share their ideas and perceptions and goals for what housing looks like in Simsbury now. What could it look like in the future? Where does inclusivity fit into that equation? We have lots of people who come forward, and I think we've all seen that over the last few months with regard to the ADU laws and other zoning issues, that people are looking for different types of housing, and we want to find out what that is. And there's a reason we're not calling it affordable housing, because that's not just what we're looking at. What we're trying to find out is what inclusive housing looks like. And what by that, we mean older people, younger people, disabled people, intergenerational housing, more culturally appropriate housing, whatever that looks like. And we want to find out what that is. So we're going to go back to the community forum model and find out. So we are going to have meetings with stakeholders of all types, sort of back to the model we used when we first started with our community forum, and see where we go. Because, we're here to find out what Simsbury residents think and what they envision and what they would like to see. And, lots of people are going to say, it's great. It's great the way it is. And that's valid, because most of us think it is great. But there's other voices too. So we have to have a place where everybody can say what it is they're thinking without fear of, recrimination or anything else. So that's where we are. That project will start in the next year, and it's going to take various forms, but as soon as we get that off the ground, we will let you know. There's a big plan. And if you want to go on, Mark. This has been in there for a while. We use this when we were giving the Board of Selectmen examples of different kinds of questions that data might use to gauge sentiment around town, around inclusivity. We took this from Iowa, but there's obviously a lot of work being done out there on this. This was just a sample. So if you want to
Has this survey been offered to the citizens of Simsbury yet?
No, it has not.
Okay, thank you. I was making sure I didn't miss it, Cheryl.
No. Hopefully you'll know it when it comes out. This is just to give us a place to start. These are Simsbury demographics. Simsbury versus Hartford County. You all can see that. And if you go on, you will see additional demographics. These are town employees. And if you go to the next page.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting.
Yeah.
I noticed there's not a category for indigenous populations. Is that deliberate, or do we just not have any? Or
this we got from the town. You would have to ask the people who collect the data. We did not collect this data. This was provided to us by the town of Simsbury.
okay.
This is Board of Education demographics. And if you go on, you'll see this was just, the article in the Hartford Current when we became a town committee. And if you go to the next one, I think you will see the resolution. And I think the next slide is just a highlight of that. We just pulled out those terms that we have based our work on. And if you go to the next one, these are the 5 focus areas. Oh, I should point out, with education at the top of the list, and I'm sure Lydia could help you with this explanation much better than I can give it. But when we started out, we realized that, and we found this out right at the very first community forum, that issues within the school system needed to be handled within the school system, and issues with the community needed to be handled by the community at large. So we have the Spirit Council as the community partner, but the Equity Council is our education partner, and the Equity Council lives within the school structure between the Board of Education and teachers and students who participate. I believe they work out of the high school. Yes.
Yes, they do.
They do. And several of our members on Spirit are also members on Equity because they have children in the school system. So there is some crossover there. But it has, it very quickly became apparent at the beginning that there was going to need to be 2 separate action plans to fulfill this mission. So the Equity Council works entirely within the school system.
And Cheryl, who chairs that Equity Council? Is it the Assistant Superintendent?
Sue Homrock Lemke.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have our new.
Oh yeah, I should say Dr. Tyresha Batchelor, who also goes back and forth between Equity and Spirit Council now.
Right.
Yeah, I should have said that.
She was just hired to be our new director of equity X and access, and so she's also housed at the high school, and so she's also the newest member on the Equity Council
and the Spirit Council.
And Spirit Council, yes.
The Spirit Council also has a student member. A high school student is on the Spirit Council. He is working on outreach issues with us. And there's going to be some crossover. The high school is going to have Equity Week in the spring, I believe, Lydia. And we are, discussing sharing some programming with them for that. Okay, I think there's just some information where to find us. We work, as I said, we have 2 Board of Selectmen liaisons, which we are very grateful for. So we have a very close relationship with the Board of Selectmen, and, all of the town staff that participate, like the Chief of Police, our Board of Education members. So we have, a very interactive group within these different spheres. Are there any other questions? I should turn it back over to Mark. You should.
Well, yeah, no, if there's any questions, that's, let's go ahead and take those now. That was fantastic. I didn't send out the slides in advance. I wanted to give you the full dramatic effect of presenting it to us. But if you're okay with that, Cheryl, we'll send these out to folks.
Absolutely. I anticipated you would do that.
I'm so happy that you gave us this presentation, because I think I could see Elizabeth sort of nodding. I could see Bob Crowther, who has really kind of delved into some of the sustainable CT actions that relate to this. And there's a lot of overlap here. And so what I'd like to do really briefly is just give you a little better understanding of the Sustainable Connecticut program, the Sustainable CT.
I should say that we did a presentation to the Economic Development Commission, so poor Bob has had to sit through me again. But,
Well, I'll comment on that because, we asked for the presentation and it was clear to me prior to the meeting, and then reinforced throughout Cheryl and Nicole's presentation to us, that what they are doing will have a dramatic impact on economic development. Because as you look for young people to move to Simsbury, young professionals, entrepreneurs looking to start a business, who are those people? And in today's world, the diversity of those people is, you just look at any Business Week or, watch any business article, and the people of color, they're people of tremendous diversity themselves. And so where do they want to live? Where do they want to go? You need to have a town that's open, welcoming, supportive, and that's what the Spirit Council is driving. So we should all be very, very supportive of what Cheryl's efforts are trying to accomplish, because if she's successful, Simsbury will be successful in all aspects of our community. And I really am a big, strong believer in what she's doing, and it could be a huge economic driver for our town.
If you can stand Bob piling on Bob here. So, I work in the ESG space, and it is not only a town imperative, it is a business imperative.
Yep, absolutely.
There's a huge war for talent in the STEM fields right now, and it's like almost impossible to hire people. And some of the discriminators for business, and I don't mean to use that word in the pejorative term, but some of the discriminators for business are: how open and welcoming are you? How diverse are you? Can I find my community in your company before we get to hire people? So yeah, kudos to you guys. Cheryl, you and I talked about this before back in the early days, and I'm really impressed with what you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And you're still welcome to join us, Bob, anytime. I know You kind of teased us there for a while.
Well, okay, there's a story behind that. And
All right, but we don't have to tell it now.
Offline.
Great. Thanks for the, and just a quick question. Someone is logged in as resident, and just maybe for our meeting minutes, could you identify yourself? You're on mute in case you're speaking now.
Okay.
That scared him away. All right. So Cheryl, what I'd like to do is just briefly give you a bit of a flavor of the Sustainable CT program. It's a terrific program that was developed a few years ago. It's run out of the Eastern Connecticut State University, the Institute for Sustainable Economics, and it's a couple of things. It's a certification program. It's a resource provider. It's an educator, and it's a source of funding, and it's probably other things that I'm not thinking of. But let me just start by giving you a flavor for what the categories are. There are now 13 categories of actions that, and this really is the definition of sustainability for the purpose of the program, right? It's broad. It's not just energy. It's not just wetlands. It's not just planning. It's really a lot of things. So you've got the very first topic is what we call equity. So inclusive and equitable community impacts. Each of these, I'm not going to do it now, but each of these you open it up and you'll see the detailed actions. And then you click on each one of those and there's all kinds of detailed information about what you need to do, what you need to submit to get points. So we'll just start at the sort of the high level right now. So equity is a really, it's number one on the list. It's very important. Thriving economies, so a sustainable economy, natural resources, culture, sustainable culture is a part of it, planning, transportation, energy, inclusive engagement, communication and education, strategic materials management, health and wellness, healthy, efficient, and diverse housing. And I think particularly here, there's some things we could look at together. Effective, compassionate homelessness prevention. And then the last sort of open category where we could be innovative and develop other types of actions. So what we do, we don't want to think of it as just getting points and getting certified, but that it is a program where you get certified. And it's worth just sort of pointing out that, I don't know how big of a motivator that is, but overall, the Sustainable CT program, I think, is it listed here? It's a participating communities. If you wanted to put together a list of actions like this, and now, okay, how do we get towns to do this? This is a hugely successful program. We've got here 126 towns are registered, 69 of them are certified, and together they've done 2,583 actions. So it's really a terrific program. So we can go back and maybe briefly tonight, and then I think maybe in more detail offline, take a look at some of those actions. As I said before, I think some of those you're already doing. To look at it in a mundane sense, maybe we can get points, but that's not really all that it's about. What can we learn about what you're doing? And there are a couple of ways that the Sustainable CT program might actually help you. And I'd like to show you at least two of those. One of them is this map, which gets kind of busy when you start. But if we went down and said, all right, let's look at category 11, healthy, efficient, and diverse housing. And is 11.1 is design and implement an affordable housing plan. And if I click on that, and then I go up here and I filter. Now, unless this is a new action and there's no history on it, if I click on this, this should filter out. Here are the towns who did this, who submitted for certification, who completed 11.1. So what you can do is pick a town. Here's West Hartford, for example. You can actually look at their report and we can go see, well, what did West Hartford do for 11.1? I'm going to make you seasick here. If I go down to 11.1, we can actually see, here's all of the materials that they submitted: a housing committee overview, an affordable housing group resolution. So they're all listed here. And you can see for each of these towns, you can see who's done this. And now we can get it's a incredible wealth of resources, right? We don't need to reinvent things, right? We can look at what other towns have done. So it's a great resource. So that's one thing. The other thing that helps us with is, we know West Hartford did this. We can reach out through the Sustainable CT program and say, who can we talk to in West Hartford about this? And I think, Joe, you've already done this, right? You were interested in some kind of a composting activity and they already put you in touch with Mansfield, was it?
Yep, that's right.
So that's another great resource. And then the last thing keeping this brief tonight, the last thing I just want to highlight for you is that the Sustainable CT program is a source of funding. They have very generous supporters who want to see these things getting done. And they have a really effective way of making that happen. It's really sort of a two-step process. So if there's any kind of a group that's doing something that wants to do any one of these actions, you reach out to Sustainable CT and say, hey, does this fit your criteria? Would this be a type of an activity you would support? Quick conversation, get that. And once you're approved, the first step is a crowdfunding. So you crowdfund as much as you can. And Sustainable CT has a resource for that. It's called Patronicity. It's a website. You create an account, you start to crowdfund. There's some minimum rules. You've got to get, I think, 29 people. You can actually have some larger donations, right? But you want to get also a show of support. Once you've done that, Sustainable CT will actually match that funding. So it's and there's a lot of money that's been flowing around. This is a quick report from the website about what they've done. And I won't go through in tremendous detail, but you can see they've invested over $2 million on 171 projects. Average budget is $12,000.
Can I ask a question here, Mark?
Please.
Is a town committee, or we're essentially acting as the town of Simsbury, eligible for this?
Yeah, in fact, there has to be town involvement.
Not town involvement, but we are actually a town committee. So
it's a good question. I mean, I think it's going to depend on the action, but I think the answer is yes. I will confirm that. But I think we're a town committee, and I think if
you're a task force, right?
We're a task force, right? Is that very different than a committee?
Eric, you want to field this one, or?
Well, I don't want to speak out of turn, but both organizations were created by the Board of Selectmen. And I guess in my mind, I don't look at it as a difference, but there may technically be one.
Yeah, I don't think for Sustainable CT there will be. I'll give you an example, and I'm going to thumb through this, and we'll see them. Town of Branford did a campaign to promote energy efficiency, and it was their ad hoc energy committee that did that, right? And they raised some funds. They promoted energy efficiency. They promoted heat pumps, and they got a grant. So we'll check into that. But here's some examples.
I just I think it sounds great. I mean, I would love to be able to do that. But I know even when we apply for a grant, we had to get an outside 501c3 to be our fiscal agent, because we can't apply for that grant as a town. So
what I can say is, from working with them in the past, Mark, I believe what they said was the town or a town committee can use it, but only one at a time. Like a nonprofit in town could do another one in Simsbury at the same time.
Okay.
But Spirit Council or else could do one at a time. The way they run it, it would be fine. But only one town affiliated directly program at a time.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we could spend a long time with this really cool presentation that they put on the website, and I won't take long, but I love just sort of thumbing through this presentation, because you get a flavor for the kind of things that towns have done for which they got funding, right? So there's a whole bunch on bike safety, expansion of a boardwalk and a trail. There's a lot on so some EV charging stations, lighting for an underpass. This is Branford that I mentioned before. They did an energy efficiency and heat pump campaign, lighting. There's a whole bunch on composting, gardening, pollinator pathways, food. So just to give you sort of a flavor, that this presentation, if I can figure out how to close it, is on the, doesn't look like I'm going to here. Will this get me out of it? There we go. I got too much going on my screen here, so I'm not able to do that. Let me see if I can move this down. No, okay, I'm going to stop sharing, but that presentation is available right on the Sustainable CT website. So, so that's, I don't know, Sheriff, did you have any more questions? That's kind of an overview of the Sustainable CT program.
Oh, that's great. We were very jealous that you got an equity coach. I mean, here we are, the Spirit Council, and we don't get an equity coach.
And let me hand over to Elizabeth, because equity really is a big part of the program, and you can maybe comment a little bit on that, Elizabeth.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think you covered a lot of it. And Cheryl, make the joke, well, not a joke, that I don't know if you need an equity coach from your presentation, because I was nodding throughout the whole thing. So I was like, yep, that's great. That's great. Love that you're working with Data Haven. Yeah, I definitely think there's, well, I guess first I'll speak to the program a bit, and then I'll talk about some of the connections that I'm seeing. But yeah, so I think maybe 2 or 3 years into the program, kind of equity was raised as being a critical component of the program, recognizing that it wasn't sufficient enough to do sustainability work in communities without considering equity. And then I think soon after that, they developed these equity coach positions. This is my second year doing that work. Worked with a bunch of different municipalities across Connecticut. So yeah, we kind of help, the big spiel that I gave this group last week, or at the last meeting rather, was equity is really supposed to be considered in all of the actions. We want to be doing all of those, that whole list that Mark shared, in a way that is inclusive of the community. So we try to, again, stay away from, this one's for equity points, or this one's an equity focused activity. Really, the message is this all needs to have that. But with that said, there is specific actions that more explicitly talk about equity. And then there's the ones at the very beginning that Mark kind of showed, where equity is front and center, the inclusive and equitable community impacts. So yeah, I kind of coach across all of the actions, but obviously the ones that are super specific and directive towards equity, those are areas that I give particular attention when I'm working with groups. But yeah, I think a lot of what we're also promoting through this program that I really saw a lot of connections to your presentation, Cheryl, is to get to an equitable result, or that's not the greatest way of saying it, but I guess to achieve true equity, one of the things that we really promote is engaging the community. And so a lot of what we recommend that folks do when they're pursuing an action is to engage the community. And so I love that the work that you're doing is like the affordable housing one. You have money through a grant that's actually, requiring that you engage the community, or asking that you engage the community. So I think building off that could be really strategic. The bit about racism being declared as a public health crisis, I think that's another one I've encouraged a lot of. There's an equity action that's about creating an equity vision for the town. So there were some towns I've worked with that already had done that public health declaration around racism, and then they linked that with a municipal statement around equity. And then some of the stuff that you're doing, like leveraging data, collecting data in the community, all of that can also be used towards some of these actions that are asking, engage the community, get their perspective, and then act on, some of these sustainability actions. So the fact that there's already going to be a survey, or you could tweak the questions that are being asked to kind of more specifically drive an action that this group's trying to pursue. I think there's a lot of opportunities for synergy. So yeah, really, really excited. I will say, just from and I'm not volunteering Cheryl, but I will say what I often encourage municipalities to do if there is a group like the Spirit Council and then this group operating, that if you are looking to kind of formally collaborate around this, some of this stuff, that there's like a I know it's super boring practical stuff, but that there's a liaison. Because so often I've seen meetings like this happen and then kind of people go back to their respective silos. So I think if both sides are kind of serious about collaborating, I definitely recommend kind of having someone vice versa kind of liaison back and forth between the groups. But yeah, no, that's kind of my bit. I don't know if there's any questions specific to the sustainable CT stuff or specific to
one thing we didn't explain is so we went through this list of 13 categories that we need to do actions in, and the other thing you need to do to get certified is you need to optimize several actions for equity. So that means you can take some of these things that you've done and you do them through, as Elizabeth said, this equity lens. Do them start to finish with equity in mind. And there's a whole toolkit and a process that Sustainable CT has developed. There's extensive training that we and town officials can get on how to do that. But one that struck me is this work you're doing on housing. Seems to me you're already doing some of the pieces of that toolkit. I don't know if you saw that, Elizabeth, as well.
Yeah, so I pulled up the toolkit the last time. I don't know if folks remember it, but and I can pull it up now. I don't know if it's worth pulling it up, but there's kind of 5 steps to it. And the first one is understanding who lives and works in your community. So some of that demographic data that Cheryl, your group's already collected, could probably be leveraged there. And then the second one is, okay, now that you understand who lives in your community, find a way to engage with that group. So that could be through a survey, community conversation. So the fact that you're already doing that survey specific to affordable housing, I think could really work well there. And then the third one is, okay, what emerged? You engage the community, but what actually happened from those conversations, what was the new understanding of what's going on for folks in the community specific to affordable housing? And then what resulted from that collaboration with the community. And survey does count as collaboration, although we recommend that people sometimes towns supplement that survey with maybe community listening sessions. And then the last one,
yeah.
Go ahead.
That would certainly be our preference, is to have community listening sessions. And one of the things we're finding challenging, even with our Let's Talk series, is that engaging people who might have differing points of view. You mentioned the silo, and the silo is real. And we feel very strongly that, welcoming everybody means welcoming everybody, regardless of what your opinion is or whatever your preconceived notions are about what it is we're doing, because that's where the real conversation starts. So I look forward to hearing your suggestions on how you break out of the silo. It's great. We have a lot of very enthusiastic people, and I think we've done a lot of really good work with our Let's Talk series. But I think there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I'll say quickly, just Cheryl, for your benefit, because you weren't here the last time, is like Mark said, there's a huge list of actions. There's this equity toolkit that has to be, again, we'll preach that it should be layered on every single action, but formally to get the certification, depending on what level you're going for, you don't have to apply the equity toolkit to all of them. So what I had recommended to this group is, start to create that inventory of actions that you want to pursue. And then maybe once there's kind of a list going of, several ideas, meeting with you to say, okay, these are some of from a sustainability perspective, these are the ones we're pursuing. Is there an intersection for equity that we can do that maybe, in collaboration with the Spirit Committee? And I think that housing one that Mark's saying, that's definitely where from your email, the materials you passed along your email, Cheryl, and then from your presentation, I'm like, that's a really perfect fit of a housing initiative. And then sustainability CT has a housing action, and you're already the housing work that you're doing as a spirit committee is engaging the communities, which is exactly what sustainable CT certification speaks to. So, but hey, there could be other fits too once we have that running list of potential actions. Maybe there's something else that you guys are doing that could be leveraged.
Yeah, like I said, we work on several fronts, all related to the resolution. But we've had the Farmington Valley Health District director in a couple of times. We've done all sorts of a variety of topics, ranging from mental health to human trafficking to law enforcement to whatever it is. We will take it on, and so yeah. I think that's a great fit, but I don't think it's the only one.
Yeah. Let's follow up, Cheryl. If there is someone within the Spirit Council who could be our sort of main point of contact, then let's have a discussion offline. I think let's unfold the list of actions and drill down a little bit, and we can sort of identify some areas where maybe we can even help out and at least provide resources, and because I think this is very, very promising.
We always need help and resources.
I don't want you to think we're just using you for points.
Oh yeah, I know you're using me.
Simsbury did get the highest certification possible 2 years ago. It was silver. They don't have a gold, and
Right.
so we'd like to get that again, but there's a lot of work still to do. So
No, it's all good.
terrific. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. And if anybody have any other questions for Cheryl?
Well, the contact info for our group is on the information that Mark's going to share with you from the presentation. We have a Facebook page where we post, all of our events and things that are happening. We also have a page on the town website. So we occasionally post things through that also.
Great.
Okay,
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again. Thanks, Cheryl. Thank you, Elizabeth. Great having you. We'll follow up.
Elizabeth, can I contact you too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye everyone. Good to see you all again.
Great. Thanks. All right. That really is exciting to see, that this program, when you look at the actions and then when you see groups that are already doing it, and it's not just a matter of documenting, but hopefully even helping them. So I think that's really really exciting. So I think next is our meeting dates for next year, and let me share my screen. I don't know if what I was going to suggest, just to give get this conversation started, was I think it's the second Tuesday of each month. Yeah, I was going to suggest the second Tuesday of the month. That's obviously not set in stone yet, but I don't know are people able to check their calendar? Is that generally a conflict-free day?
No, planning meets on second and fourth Tuesday of the month.
All right, so planning.
Board of Education meets on second and fourth Tuesday of the month.
Okay, so we're currently doing the second Wednesday. So if we did third Tuesday, how does that look?
Mark, it's a crapshoot for me, no matter what day you pick.
Okay, and I think for all of us, it's a crapshoot. But if we know, clearly second Tuesday is not going to work. So that would be, for example, I said third Tuesday. So that would be the 18th of January. That's actually not great for me. No, I'm sorry. That's a Wednesday. Yeah. So 18th. Yep. Actually, so that'd be January 18th. That would be February 15th. That would be March 15th. How do those third Tuesday? I would guess for maybe the planning and Board of Ed folks, that's not bad because at least it spreads your meetings out. You don't have as many in 1 week. So I don't hear any major objections. So what I will do is I'll redraft this memo. I did go through each month because I wanted to make sure it wasn't a holiday or any other reason to avoid it. So there may be, I may need to make a modification if there was something else, but other than that, sounds as though the third Tuesday of each month will work. So I think we should make and actually, yeah, let's go ahead and, well, actually, before we do a motion, let's talk about, do people want to go back into town hall or wherever we would meet for meetings, or are you happy with Zoom for now?
I'm happy with Zoom. As long as we can work effectively over Zoom, I'm fine with it. If we have something that we actually need to get together for, because we have to manipulate something physical, but that'd be fine. But
Yep.
I think right now, the longer we stay away from each other, the better.
Yeah, I want to agree. I think the Zoom meetings for this particular meeting work fine.
Yep.
The odds of me joining a given meeting increase exponentially.
Yeah,
with Zoom.
that's true.
Yep. It's a lot less, there's no, I mean, I'd love to be together, but the other thing that's funny is I was meeting with some people in person not too long ago, and we all had to pull out our laptops and we're trying to make sure we have the same PowerPoint up, and with Zoom, you just share your screen and it works really, really well. So it's actually more effective, but I mean, it'd be nice to be together again, but it sounds as though Zoom, at least for the foreseeable future, is good. So,
I mean, you could always just decide that, one month you might decide, maybe we should get together and be in person the following one. But I think in general, I know I just do so much work all the time on Zoom. Like I just, back-to-back meetings just happen instead of driving to one place. And like you just said, pull out your laptop. It's not as effective. I mean, I get the whole in-person thing, but.
Yeah. We're not subject to the whims of the weather either.
Yeah.
Mark, I don't know if it makes a difference at this because you all seem to want to be remote, but it would be hybrid for the time being anyways, because we'd still have to do the online portion because of the
Right.
COVID issues. So
Right.
if that matters, but just as an FYI.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go with Zoom. Is there a motion to hold our meetings the third Tuesday of the month via Zoom virtually?
So moved.
All right. Second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. I think now we've got our updates. Let me go back to the agenda. Updates on Clean Energy Task Force and sustainability. The main thing, and it really isn't new on the Clean Energy Task Force, is, as you know, we have our energy plan that we've drafted. We intend to present this to the Board of Selectmen in January, and sometime around that same time to the Board of Ed. We don't have a date yet for the Board of Ed, but and I think the other activity, as you may recall from our energy plan, one of the actions in there is to I forget exactly how we worded it, but to promote net zero construction in school buildings. So to that end, some of us have been working with the Board of Ed and the Public Building Committee to just get up to speed on what's going with the Latimer renovation. The Public Building Committee and Jason Casey from the Board of Ed have been very supportive and very, very helpful. Bob initiated a conversation with the superintendent of schools in Mansfield, who lives in Simsbury. Mansfield is doing a net zero new school. So they spoke with some folks at the Board of Ed as well. So I think there's a communication now between Mansfield and Simsbury, and their Public Building Committee the other night, I had a chance to chat with some of the architects, and I think some of the plans that we're looking at for Latimer are going to include basically an all-electric option, right? So all-electric kitchen, all-electric potential heating and cooling with geothermal or a hybrid geothermal air source heat pump. So there will at least be an option of an all-electric school, and then all you got to do is add solar, and you've got a net zero school. So I think what it will come down to is how much of that can be fit in this budget, which was already set by the referendum. So there's a Board of Ed meeting December 14th. If anybody's interested, I think the more people show up there and support. So the architects and the engineers are going to report to the Board of Ed then, and I'm going to go to that meeting. And anybody who wants to show support for net zero at that meeting, feel free to show up. Jason or Lydia, anything you want to add on the Latimer?
I'll let Jason, since he deals with this more on an administrative level, talk about that.
Sure. I would say you stole my thunder a little bit there, Mark. That was pretty much the topics I wanted to hit. That the project is a net zero ready project. So within the budget that we have, getting as close to net zero as possible. As you said, geothermal is a big part of those discussions. Dedicated outdoor air systems, also very important in today's COVID climate, make sure we're ventilating properly. That's all I wanted to bring up. And if Rich wants to add to that, I don't want to speak out of turn. It's the Public Building Committee's project, so.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem here is budget more than anything else. Because you're talking about $45 a square foot versus $65 a square foot to go completely geothermal. So the costs are really, really big. Can we fit it in? Maybe. That's what we have the architects and everybody else looking at, the MEP people. They'll figure out what we can do at what cost and then present us the options, and then we'll have to pick one. And the Board of Ed has already weighed in on what they want for the school, and they're still weighing in with meetings with these people. So once it comes to us from the architects and everybody, we'll have to make a decision on exactly what we can fit in where to meet as many needs as possible. But the goal is net zero.
I have a question about, and I haven't been really tuned into this specifics at all, but one of the thoughts as you do energy efficient net zero kinds of buildings is that down the road you're going to be spending less money, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Right. So I mean that's gotta factor in there as part of the calculation, and I'm sure you are doing that. I just wondered.
So it's when you talk about the calculation, the problem is that the Board of Finance appropriated the money already. So we've got a bucket, and that's the only bucket we can swim in for this.
Yeah, got it.
So when they were doing the numbers and figuring out what it was going to cost, if nobody thought to say, oh, this is going to cost exponentially more than, it's going to be 65 rather than $45 a square foot. If nobody took that into account, the money might be short to do something like that. Now, they're smart people. I don't know who they talk to. I'm not involved in the finance process at all. But if the money's there, we'll do the best we can to get what we need to get done. But if it wasn't accounted for at any phase, then we'll know the next time we go to do another project to present the Board of Finance with some facts that they need to know before they come up with a number.
I'm not knowing how the process works, but is there any value in going back to the Board of Finance and saying, how do you incorporate operational cost savings into that and, have them take a second look at it? Is that a possibility?
That's over my pay grade, but Eric might be able to answer that.
Yes, possibly over my pay grade too. I was going to say that, what I think is going to be critical is we've got, as you know, the town that did a facilities study, the Board of Ed did a facilities study. And I want to make sure that this group is at the table, not coming in the fourth or fifth inning, but they're, during batting practice. And I think, one of the small ways that I want to influence that, this Saturday, the Board of Selectmen is doing a goal setting session. And I found in my 4 years that just having something articulated as a goal makes it much more likely to happen. And I don't know exactly how to word it, and I welcome your feedback, but really ensuring that this group is consulted when we're making any kinds of progress on that plan, whether it's a whole new building or just replacing a boiler. I want to make sure you guys are at the table.
So let me suggest something here. Some of that language, and we can talk about this offline if you want, Eric, but I'm going to liken this to disaster management. That sounds like a weird comparison, right? We always find money to fix stuff up after a storm knocks it down, but we seldom find money to make it resilient to storms. This is the exact same issue when we build a capital project. Yes, there is a different budget, different bucket for CapEx than there is for OpEx, right? Of course. But we should, in all cases, be asking our designers, our architects, et cetera, for what we call an LCCA, life cycle cost analysis, right? If we spend 1.2 CapEx, what do we save in OpEx? And what is the projected life of the asset? And this is the same money. It's the same. They have different buckets when you play with them, right? But they're the same money for the citizens of Simsbury.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the calculus that we should be running through. And then let's set aside the idea that at some point, if business gets its way, there's going to be a price on carbon. Will that affect municipalities? I have absolutely no idea. But once you start layering on the different risk factors of not doing it this way, it begins to make a hell of a lot of sense. So happy to help you with wording.
Thanks.
Take that offline. I don't want to spend the group's time with that.
Thanks, Bob. I'm not concerned about spend to save opportunities, but we have to be at the table before we go to the voters and bond for it. And that's the miss in this particular case.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also you should know that the state changed its requirements for new school buildings. So that now they're essentially, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're essentially a net zero requirements for new school buildings now, right?
Really?
Whether they say net zero or not, that's essentially where they put it. But that happened after we did the bonding for this project.
Sure.
So that's why it was probably not part of the conversation yet. It could have been if somebody was thinking about it, but now it's actually more of a mandate. So it will be going forward.
Do you know, Rich, if any of the options they're going to present to you guys includes, solar panels covering the roof and that kind of stuff? Because that can work without CapEx if you do a PPA.
We are working. So our directive was to make the roof solar ready in case the school system wanted to take up that project at a later time. It wasn't part of this one, but it should be ready to put the panels up on the roof whenever the school system decides.
So, that may be an opportunity for you guys to look at if there's external funding for that. If you do a PPA with a provider.
I would just add that both the roof and the electrical system are being set with conduit already in place running to the roof to facilitate that kind of system. And the intakes on the electrical system. Additionally, just to point out, we are, as the school district, we are aware of PPA options to us. And now that we've just completed or in the process of just finishing up the high school roof project, we're working on a PPA agreement that should kick off this summer to put panels on that roof for a 1 megawatt system.
Nice.
Yeah, Public Building Committee authorized, through the bucket of money that we had for that roof, we had to authorize some extra seam sealing up there so that you could do the photovoltaic. So,
correct.
When it comes to us, we try to take care of it if we have the ability.
Message is beginning to be received. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a great discussion. And I think to Eric's point, we need to be at the table. And I think, we are at the table on Latimer. And I think thanks to Jason, thanks to the Public Building Committee, we were at the table. We had a voice much earlier than we were at the middle school. But I think we really need to be there before the bonding is done. I know in Mansfield, there was a public referendum that said we want net zero. And when I say Manchester and Mansfield, the public referendum. So we really need to be there earlier. But this is progress. This is really good progress. Just before we move on, so on the clean energy, Baird has joined us. Baird Faithful, thanks for joining us, Baird. Baird is not a member, but a very active guest to our proceedings. Baird ran the whole electric vehicle show at September Feast and is also working on assessing the electric vehicle readiness of the town. So we've got a training opportunity through Sustainable CT, and Baird has been helping out with that. So thanks, Baird. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to comment on that or nope, but thank you for all of your work.
Hello all.
Great to have you. And just one last thing on clean energy. I'm going to send this around, but this nonprofit People's Action for Clean Energy is just releasing a handbook for towns. This is basically to help towns sort of know, really to give them a bunch of, there we go, sort of steps they can take and a bunch of resources. So it follows this pattern here of organizing your project team, you're doing a baseline assessment, creating an energy plan, engaging the community, and then getting to work on efficiency, heating and cooling, transportation, renewables, community power, and the grid. And for each of these, then you'll see some steps, some description of what can be done, and some resources. So this is just being released as we speak. I'll go ahead and send it to everybody following this meeting. But I think in particular, as this committee looks to what we want to be doing in 2022, we have our energy plan, but this I think might also be a helpful resource for us to sort of look at things that we might want to be doing. So I'll send that around after this meeting. And that was clean energy, and then update from sustainability. I think we had a great conversation tonight on equity, and I know I heard from Susan Olson, who also is not a member, but again, an active guest. She's working with the Pollinator Pathway team. Are there any other sustainable CT actions that people are aware of that are going on, moving forward? I mentioned the EV readiness. That's one that Baird is helping with. One that I mentioned at the last meeting is this climate. I can never get the terminology right. Climate resiliency assessment, something like that. We have an opportunity for some training or a program with, I think it's Nature Conservancy, and we're working to try to get involved. It's a nice program that's being offered to us, and it entails a workshop. And we're going to need to get a commitment from a couple of town staff to take part in assessing the resiliency, the vulnerability of the town to climate change, things like increased natural catastrophes, disasters, and flooding or other impacts on the town. And then actually in the course of this workshop, develop a rudimentary plan. So it's a nice sort of training. And we have a deadline Friday to see if we can get into it. And I've been working with Tom Roy and the town to see if we can get enough of a commitment to move forward. So I think that's another nice little activity for us. Anything else from, that folks are aware of? I have a little bit of good news, and I feel like a bit of an idiot. I learned that the deadline for submitting I shouldn't tell you, the deadline for submitting our report, our submission for recertification is not spring, it's August of 2022. So that's a bit of good news. I don't know where I got spring, but so we have a little more time, but we have a lot of work to do. But I think there's a lot of good things already going on, and I think if we sort of plan, go through this action list, and everybody really sort of steps up and says, "I'm going to take the lead on these actions and find the right people and work with Sustainable CT," we will kill it again.
Mark, one suggestion. And not right now, but at some point we need to sit down. If the date is August, maybe put together a project plan to say, for each one of these items, what needs to happen by when, and be able to report on that such that we know that we're ready to go by August. So maybe that's something we do in the spring, kick off in the spring.
Yeah.
But it'd be good to be able to pull something like that together, an overall plan, project plan to get us there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, Bobby. We have kind of danced around that a little bit, and we've gone through the list, and we've said, we think we can do this one, but we really need to put together an action list, a punch list that we can then be going through. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. So I say we do that right in January. Let's plan to kick off the year with our getting organized. The third Tuesday of January.
Okay.
Good. Any other business?
No, I just have an anecdotal story that this group might appreciate. Secretary Granholm was in Connecticut last Thursday, and I got to meet her, and she was pretty amazing. So she's the Secretary of Energy. So she was doing a dog and pony up in Enfield at this really amazing EV manufacturer. You probably know it, EVSE, and it's a manufacturing company. They've been in, and so just the commitment right now from the federal level for deployment of EVs and the monies that coming down, the jobs it's going to create. It's really important. I think everything that this group is talking about right now, as far as looking into the future and not allowing buildings to be built that are going to be there for the next 80 years, and they're going to be fossil fuel generated if we're not careful. And honestly, this is the important stuff, and it's exciting to be in this arena right now because there's so much going on in energy policy, and it's so important and critical to everything we're doing. So it's exciting to be a part of this group because there's so many smart and dedicated people. And so I just thought I'd say that our Secretary of Energy is no slouch. She's pretty amazing. So
thank you.
Thanks for that.
For us.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, that is exciting. Yeah. So thank you for the inspiring words to end our meeting. Any other business or public forum? Terrific. So this is our last meeting for 2021. I think we're on track. I think we've got a lot of good things happening, and so I wish you all it seems early to be doing this, but I wish you all a pleasant rest of the month and holidays, and we will regather and charge ahead in January. So thanks everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Dinner is waiting.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Thanks, folks.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.